Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, the Chair announces that she will postpone further proceedings today on each motion to suspend the rules on which a recorded vote or the ayes and nays are ordered, or on which the vote is objected to under Clause 6 of Rule 20. Any record votes on postponed questions will be taken after debate has concluded on all motions to suspend the rules, but not before 6 p.m. today. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Maryland rise?
Madam Speaker, I move the House suspend the rules and pass House Concurrent Resolution 376.
The clerk will report the title of the concurrent resolution.
House Concurrent Resolution 376, concurrent resolution expressing the sense of the Congress regarding support for the recognition of a Liberty Day.
Pursuant to the rule, the gentlewoman from Maryland, Mrs. Morella, and the gentleman from Maryland, Mr. Cummings, each will control 20 minutes. The Chair recognizes the gentlewoman from Maryland.
Madam Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks on H-Con Res 376.
Without objection.
Madam Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume. I rise today in support of House Concurrent Resolution 376, which calls for the people of the United States to celebrate a Liberty Day each year. In the words of the resolution, Liberty Day would serve, quote, as a remembrance of both the freedom that Americans were given in the Declaration of Independence and the extraordinary rights and liberties that Americans were given in their Constitution, unquote. The resolution also holds that all elected and previously elected representatives of the people who voluntarily give of their time to speak to the American people about these founding documents to further our remembrance of our freedom, our rights, and our liberties would deserve our thanks. The preamble to the resolution also finds that March 16th, James Madison's birthday, would be a fitting reminder of Liberty Day and an appropriate occasion to celebrate the inalienable rights and liberties proclaimed by the Declaration of Independence and secured by the Constitution. Madam Speaker, this is the second time in as many weeks that this House has had occasion to reflect on the life and achievements of James Madison. Last week, we passed House Concurrent Resolution 396 to celebrate Madison's birth and his many contributions to our nation. The resolution before the House today also recognizes the immense contributions of this remarkable patriot to securing the freedom we enjoy today. Madam Speaker, Madison himself said that, quote, my life has been so much of a public one that any review of it must mainly consist of the agency which was my lot in public transactions, unquote. Although he was the 4th President of the United States, the greatest of Madison's public transactions was surely his crucial role in the framing and adoption of the Constitution of the United States. As the resolution notes, Madison was the major author of the Virginia Plan, which served as the basis and model for the Constitution of the United States that was proposed by the Constitutional Convention in 1787. Along with John Jay and Alexander Hamilton, Madison also contributed to securing ratification of the Constitution by writing parts of the Federalist Papers. The Federalist Papers endure to this day, as the resolution observes, as some of the best arguments for our form of government. Madison also kept detailed records of the debates and compromises in the Constitutional Convention, which were published only after all delegates to the convention were dead. The Federalist Papers and Madison's notes on the Constitutional Convention remain primary sources for all who seek an understanding of the framers' intent. As a member of the First Congress, Madison was also instrumental in framing the Bill of Rights. Madam Speaker, as the 106th Congress concludes, it's certainly proper that we pass this resolution to remember the founding documents, the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, and James Madison's contributions to the formation of our system of government. I urge all members to support this resolution, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The Chair recognizes the gentleman from Maryland, Mr. Cummings.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I yield myself such time as I may consume. Madam Speaker, last Monday, I stood at this podium to manage House Concurrent Resolution 396, celebrating the birth of James Madison and his contributions to the nation. Today I am here to manage a resolution that would express Congress's support for the recognition of March 16th, James Madison's birthday, as Liberty Day. This resolution bestows this honor on James Madison because he was the primary author and steadfast supporter of three great works of American democracy: the Constitution, the Federalist Papers, and the Bill of Rights. If this resolution is passed, Madison's birthday would serve to remind us of our rights and liberties as enumerated in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. Liberty is defined in Webster's Collegiate Dictionary as, and I quote, the quality or state of being free and the power of choice, two premises on which this nation was founded. The promise of freedom and choice is what thousands of immigrants saw in a copper statue in the New York Bay. The statue was of a woman holding a torch in her right hand and a tablet bearing the adoption date of the Declaration of Independence in her left. Her pedestal reads, and I quote, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free." The Statue of Liberty was and still is a symbol of hope and freedom in America. Another traditional symbol of United States freedom can be found in Philadelphia in the form of a cracked bell. The bell was first rung on July 8th, 1776, 4 days after the adoption of the Declaration of Independence. It tolled to celebrate the first public reading of the document. The bell bears the motto, and I quote, "Proclaim liberty throughout all the land unto all the inhabitants thereof." The Liberty Bell, first named in 1839, abolitionist pamphlet, remains a symbol of freedom and a reminder that all Americans are created equal. When H-Con Res 376 is passed, Americans will have another opportunity to reflect on this nation's tradition of freedom and equality. Liberty Day will further enhance the importance and symbolic meaning of two existing icons of American freedom, the Statue of Liberty and the Liberty Bell. On March 16th, Americans will celebrate a promise originated by James Madison and others and documented in the Declaration of Independence and the United States Constitution. That promise is one of freedom and choice. And in the words of James Madison, he said simply these: "The prescriptions in favor of liberty ought to be leveled against the quarter where the greatest danger lies, namely, which possesses the highest prerogative of power. But this is not found in either the executive or legislative departments of government, but in the body of the people, operating by the majority against the minority." And so with that, Madam Speaker, I urge all of my colleagues to support this resolution. I congratulate our sponsor, and I would reserve the balance of my time.
The gentlewoman from Maryland is recognized.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, it gives me pleasure to recognize the sponsor of this resolution, Mr. Tancredo from Colorado, for such time as he may consume.
The gentleman from Colorado is recognized for such time as he may consume.
I thank the gentlelady for yielding. Madam Speaker, I could not do better in terms of describing the importance of this resolution and its historical implications than my two colleagues have done here from the state of Maryland. Both of them, I think, have been incredibly articulate in proposing or in expressing those sentiments. I will only add that it is important also to remember that James Madison, as the fourth President of the United States, was also the major author of the Virginia Plan, which is a model and the basis for the United States Constitution that emerged from the Constitutional Convention in 1787. And I want to also say that this whole issue comes to us today on the floor of the House as a result of the really tireless efforts of one individual in my district, a gentleman by the name of Andy McKeon, who, with other members of the Lions Club, took this on as a project some time ago and decided that something had to be done in order to increase the level of knowledge that the students, especially students and youngsters, have about the Constitution, about the Bill of Rights, and about really what liberty means in the United States of America. As part of that task, they have been instrumental in delivering and distributing literally hundreds of thousands of copies of the Constitution. The Liberty Day Colorado is the way it's identified here, but these little pocket constitutions have gone out to schools all over Colorado. There are over 1 million active members of the Lions Club nationwide, and it is my understanding that this is a project they are anticipating to take on as an organization. It is supported right now in state legislatures throughout the country: Colorado, California, Maine, Pennsylvania, Ohio, North Carolina, Virginia, New Hampshire, Montana, Mississippi, Indiana, Idaho, Wyoming, and other states are on the way. It is nonpartisan, as evidenced by the discussion here today, and it's funded entirely through businesses and individual contributions. It will be the national recognition will provide a rallying point for this grassroots movement. And it is also, I think, a tribute to individuals like Mr. McKeon. I mean, really a textbook could be written about the way in which he has devoted a good portion of his life to this event and how it has worked its way through the process and now appears before us on the floor of the House, and hopefully will eventually become part of our national recognition of Liberty Day. So again, I want to thank the committee, and I want to thank the members here who have spoken so eloquently in its support, and I yield the balance of my time.
The gentleman from Maryland.
Madam Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume. Madam Speaker, I want to thank Mr. Tancredo for his words. It is very heartening to know that the Lions Club took this on as a project. I think it's very, very important in our society that we do everything in our power, Madam Speaker, to lift up our children. I've often said that they are the living messages we send to a future we may never see. And I want to congratulate him for that. With that, Madam Speaker, I just want to end with one of my favorite quotes from Madison, which was stated on June 8, 1789. And when he said that all power is originally vested in and consequently derived from the people, that government is instituted and ought to be exercised for the benefit of the people, which consists in the enjoyment of life and liberty, with the right of acquiring and using property, and generally of pursuing and obtaining happiness and safety. That the people have an indubitable, unalienable, and indefeasible right to reform or change their government whenever it be found adverse and inadequate to the purposes of the institution. And with that, Madam Speaker, I would urge all of our colleagues to vote in favor of this very important resolution, and I would yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back the balance of his time. The gentlewoman from Maryland.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I very much appreciate the quotation and the discussion with my colleague from Maryland. And I would like to recognize another colleague from Maryland for such time as he may consume, Mr. Bartlett.
The gentleman from Maryland is recognized for such time as he may consume.
Thank you. I want to thank my friend from Maryland for yielding, and I want to thank my other friend from Maryland for his quote. You know, it's hard for us to realize what a radical document the Declaration of Independence was. If you think back, our forefathers, now they come from all parts of the world, but our forefathers, when this country was founded, came from principally the British Isles and the European continent. If you remember your history, almost every one of them came from a country where the king or the emperor claimed, and incredibly from our position, was granted what was known as divine rights. In other words, what the king or the emperor claimed was that the rights came from God to him, and he would then give what rights he wished to his people. Sometimes many, sometimes very few. Our forefathers made a radical departure from this, because in the Declaration of Independence they said, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that the rights didn't come from God to the king, that the rights came from God to the people. And it was the wish of our forefathers that they would found a government which had very limited rights, that most of the rights should still reside with the people. And so they wrote the Constitution 11 years later, ratified in 1787. And the ink was hardly dry before they recognized that it might not be clear to everyone how committed they were to the proposition that the rights fundamentally belonged to the people, and they would give just what few rights were necessary to the government. And so 4 years later, and it was in 1791, that the first 10 amendments, which we know as the Bill of Rights, were finally ratified by 3/4 of the states. And if you look through those Bill of Rights and reflect on what they said, most of them address the rights of the people. And then to make sure that no one could misunderstand that they meant most of these rights to reside with the people, in the 9th Amendment they say that just because we didn't mention in the Constitution that a right belonged to the people, don't disparage the fact that it does belong to the people. And then in the 10th Amendment they came back, and I think this is the most violated amendment in the Constitution, the most violated part of the Constitution. They come back and say, in today's English, if you kind of put this in today's English, our Constitution is Old English and it's legalese, and so sometimes you have to paraphrase it to understand clearly what they meant. And what they're saying in the 10th Amendment is that if you can't find it in Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, the federal government can't do it. That they can only do those things which are found there, and all the things that are not found there, all the rights not specifically given to the government, belong to the people or to the states. So I think that it's very appropriate that we designate a Liberty Day. That's what our forefathers wished so much for us to have. That's what we're at risk of losing as government becomes ever bigger and bigger and more intrusive. So I wholeheartedly support this resolution and thank the lady very much for yielding to me.
Pleasure. Madam Speaker, I yield myself the balance of my time. I want to commend the gentleman from Colorado, Mr. Tancredo, for introducing this resolution and working very hard to bring it to the floor today. I also want to thank the Lions Club for taking on this Liberty Day project. The Lions Club has been noted for its eye banks. They care about vision, and frankly, Liberty Day has to do with the vision to look ahead in terms of recognizing the values of the past and the principles upon which we are guided into the future. I also want to thank Representative Joe Scarborough, who's the chairman of the Civil Service Subcommittee, Congressman Elijah Cummings, who's a ranking member of the Civil Service Subcommittee, Chairman Dan Burton of the Government Reform Committee, as well as the ranking member of the Government Reform Committee, Mr. Waxman, because they have helped the consideration of this resolution. It's also a pleasure to be able to floor manage this resolution that we believe in with my colleague from Maryland. I thank my other colleague from Maryland also for his understanding of the Constitution and his statement. And so, Madam Speaker, I ask for support of this resolution. Yield back the balance of my time.